A costing method refers to the approach or technique used by businesses to determine the costs associated with producing a product or providing a service. It involves analyzing various cost elements such as raw materials, labor, overhead expenses, and other factors to accurately calculate the total cost per unit or service. Job costing is for tracking the costs when every project is different, and the cost of each job varies. This method looks at both direct and indirect costs. Many firms and businesses work on a job work basis. In such cases, we use the job costing method. Here the cost is assigned to a specific job, assignment etc. There is no pre-production here, each order is made to the specifications needed. If the system is implemented accurately, we can find the profitability of each job. To calculate the cost of a job, you first add all the direct costs. Then, you allocate a portion of the indirect costs based on how many resources are consumed for the assignment. For example, if a job took up 50% of the factory space for a day, you would allocate 50% of the day's rent to that task. The advantage of this method is that it gives a relatively accurate picture of the cost of each job because it considers all the associated costs. The disadvantage of job costing is that it can be time-consuming since you need to track and allocate all the different expenses accordingly. Process costing, a process referring to a particular stage in manufacturing, helps mass producers with slight product variations track costs. This is one of the most popular methods of costing. There are many goods that are produced continuously. These goods are homogeneous and are usually produced in huge quantities. So the method of process costing is used to find the cost of production of each unit. For example, the first stage might be cutting the fabric for manufacturing, and the second stage might be sewing the garment. To calculate the cost of a process, you add up all the direct expenses incurred in that specific production stage, including the materials used and wages of your operators. You then allocate a portion of the indirect costs based on how much the process uses the resources. The advantage of this method is that it's less time consuming than job costing since you don't need to track and allocate costs for each individual job. The disadvantage is that it can lead to inaccuracies since it doesn't consider all the costs involved in manufacturing. For example, if one process takes longer than usual, that will increase the indirect costs, which won't appear in the final cost. Activity-based costing looks into the cost of each unit from mass production runs depending on the activities involved in making it. ABC is a more sophisticated version of job costing. In activity-based costing, overhead costs are assigned to activities rather than products. This is done by first allocating indirect costs to cost pools. A cost pool is a group of related costs incurred when performing a particular activity. For example, the cost of setting up a production line would be allocated to a cost pool. The total overhead costs in the cost pool are then divided by the number of units of activity. The resulting figure is known as the activity rate. This activity rate is then applied to the number of units of activity used by each product to calculate its individual overhead cost. Cost control is a systematic process that involves managing, regulating, and restraining expenses within an organization. It is a proactive approach aimed at ensuring that a company's resources are used efficiently and that unnecessary costs are minimized. Essentially, it's about striking the right balance between expenses and revenue to maximize profitability. Cost control is a technique which makes available the necessary information to the management that actual costs are aligned with the budgeted costs or not. Cost reduction is a technique which we use to save the unit cost of the product without compromising its quality. The following are the main differences between cost control and cost reduction. Cost control focuses on decreasing the total cost of production while cost reduction focuses on decreasing per unit cost of a product. Cost control is a temporary process in nature, unlike cost reduction, which is a permanent process. The process of cost control will be completed when the specified target is achieved. Conversely, the process of cost reduction is a continuous process. It has no visible end. It targets for eliminating wasteful expenses. Cost control does not guarantee quality maintenance of products. However, cost reduction assured 100% quality maintenance. Cost control is a preventive function because it ascertains the cost before its occurrence. Cost reduction is a corrective function.